Well, hello everybody! Welcome back to G Bear's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert on June 27th, 2020. And you're staring at a paper plate. And a while back when my water was critical, I had a bunch of comments from people about using paper plates and washing dishes right away so that the food doesn't stick on, you don't have to use more water, all that kind of stuff, okay? Well, let me tell you what I've been doing since I've been an off-gridder. Well, I buy these plates. These are by Dixie. These are really good plates. They hold up well, but they're no good for steaks and things that you're going to be using a steak knife, and it's hot and juicy meat that's going to be laying on the plate. In no time at all, you'll pick your plate up and there'll be a puddle on the table. These are not good for that. So I always keep a couple of glass or porcelain plates handy. I got plenty if I had company, but I always keep at least two handy because I usually have company one person at a time. And those are great for when you're using a steak knife like this to go through it, a serrated steak knife, because these will cut right through in no time. All right, so this plate is going to go on its fourth use right now. No, I don't wash the plate. But what I do is I buy these cheap napkins, okay? For cheap napkins, they're great. They come in a 500 pack, and they're 99 cents. Cheap enough, right? So I keep a stack of those all the time on the table here. I got some on the table inside, so I always have some handy. And then I keep plenty in stock up in my cabinets, the new cabinets I made. And the reason I buy these all the time is because these are cheaper than these. Okay? So I buy these in like an 80 pack, and they're $6, $7, something like that. So these are a little on the expensive side, but as soon as I'm done eating on there, like this morning, the last thing that was on this plate this morning was bacon and eggs. Okay, so plate doesn't look greasy or anything like that. I always have at least one napkin to dab my lips with while I'm eating. Well, as soon as I'm done eating, I take that napkin and I wipe all of the grease out of the plate. Then I roll that napkin up and I put it in the fire pit because they attract flies. Then I take another fresh napkin and I wipe the plate down nice and clean. And I save that napkin because it's only got a little bit of stuff on it. So I can use that for cleaning up a spill or something to that effect. All right, so there's no dishwashing involved. Also, for my fork, I do the same thing. I'll take the napkin and I'll wipe the fork off immediately after using it. Don't let it sit and dry on there. Wipe it off right away. Rub it really good. Get in between the tines with the napkin and clean the fork off. It's you that's going to use it again, so don't worry about it. You know, you might catch your own germs, but your own germs won't kill you. All right, I do the same thing with my steak knives. I wipe them off as soon as I'm done using them. Butter knives, all of that stuff. So there's very little stuff that I have to wash in the sink. Now, when I talk about doing dishes in the sink and letting a few of them pile up before I do dishes, okay, what I'm talking about there are little saucepans where I may have boiled some vegetables in it. Well, I strain off the water, I eat my vegetables, and I put a little bit of soap in that pan and a little bit of water just to start breaking down whatever's cooked on inside the pan, if there's anything. With vegetables, very seldom there's anything, but if I'm doing baked beans, things like that, I always do that, and I just kind of like swish the water around just to break up any food stuff that's in there with my Dawn dishwashing liquid. Well, then down the line, I'm not going to stand there and run water and put a gallon of water down the sink to wash that one pan. So if I have a spoon, a serving spoon, a spatula, tongs that I use to barbecue chicken, something like that, I'll put them in that pan and let them soak. And I'll get a group of stuff together, and then I'll put a little bit of more water in the sink after I dump the pan out and get all that food stuff out of there. And I'll put about, I'd say maybe 4 cups of water in the bottom of the sink with the stopper in place. And I take my scrubby sponge that has a scrubby on one side, sponge on the other side, and I put my Dawn dishwashing liquid into the sponge on the scrubby side. And then I pick up a little water and I start scrubbing all of the dishes that I have to clean. And I set them there in the sink. Pull the stopper, let that down, turn the faucet on with the sprayer in place, and I start with the biggest item like the saucepan, and I rinse that out. And as I'm doing that, whatever water I'm dumping out of that pan as I'm rinsing it, I rinse the other stuff that's in the sink at the same time. And then I just have to give them a light spray, and then grab my terry towel, dry everything off, and put it away. And it's that simple. Everything's clean, and I probably do a full load of dishes with maybe 8 cups of water total. So that's about it. All right, so we covered that, and we're going to move on. Another thing I like doing, like I said, I like dual purpose items. These little things are headbands that I use, sweatbands, to keep the sweat out of my eyes while I'm working during the day. And where do they come from? The bottoms of old t-shirts. After a t-shirt gets unusable, can't use it anymore, big holes in the armpits where my BO has rotted through them. Just kidding. But when they're just torn or shredded, just unusable, this is the bottom area. I go about 2 inches or 2.5 inches up, and I cut it with a pair of scissors and then give it a start, and then you can just tear it all the way around. And they make great headbands. I put the seam up just above my eyebrow, let this little rolled over stay at the top, and then I tie it behind my head, and I can work until I soak that up, pull it off, and put another one on. So I do that with a lot of t-shirts, and handy little item. All right, next, the pump head. Question was, how much more does a complete pump assembly cost than a pump head? Well, you can get a pump head for around $13. You can buy the whole pumps unit for around $60. So it's worth buying the pump head. Now, here's what the inside of the pump head looks like. There's nothing to it. This little thing down here is a pressure switch. See, it's a plunger. So when pressure builds up inside of this little unit, it presses that down and turns the pump thing on. And then when you stop the pressure, it shuts off the pump. All right. So this is the one that I had repaired before with some epoxy. And that is marine epoxy. It's solid as a rock, but it just I didn't get a good cleaning underneath it, and it ran out. And the reason I probably didn't get a good cleaning underneath it was because at the time I was installing this pump, I broke it, and I didn't have a backup. And I needed to get the pump in before the night was through so that I'd have water in the cabin. So the only thing you have on this are these 8 screws that hold it in. Now the instructions will say, take out the outer screws first or take out the inner screws first. And what they mean, let me get this up on my hand. The outer screws are the 4 in the corners. The inner screws are the 4 that are in between them. One here, one there, so forth. Okay, so you're going to take them out in sets. The outer ones and then the inner ones. And when you put them back in, the instructions don't say this, but good practice is you alternate. You snug this screw, go to the opposite corner all the way down there, and snug that screw, then snug this screw, and then snug this screw in a crisscross. So you want to do that so that you don't warp the heads or tweak the heads as you're doing it. And you don't tighten them all at once. Give them a little snug quarter turn, go all the way around, and then do the same thing again. Go back to the beginning, go crisscross, back and forth, and you're going to put the same thing on the inside screws. Now they do call for torquing the screws in inch pounds and in the instructions. Well, if you don't have a inch pound torque wrench with an adapter for a Phillips head screwdriver on it, you're not going to be able to do that. But it's inch pounds, it's not foot pounds. There's not a lot of pressure on those things, and there's 8 screws holding that head on, so you can just give them a good tightening with a screwdriver. All right, so we're going to move on this, and as I'm moving out, we're going to talk about a couple other things. One of the things that I'm thinking of doing is I just said it as a joke in a response to a comment, but I'm actually now contemplating doing it. For $80, I can get one of those IBC totes, just like the one I had on the trailer and running around with. 275-gallon IBC tote. Well, I sure do miss my jacuzzi, and jacuzzis are expensive. I mean, really expensive. So what I'm thinking, all right, you're all ahead of me now. Yeah, I'm thinking about making a jacuzzi out of one of these. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cut the top off right even with this bar all the way around, take the plastic top off of it, and then I'm going to modify the top so that the plastic part, not the metal will stay off, but the plastic part will be able to fit back on as a cover so that I don't have to worry about critters getting into my water. And then I'll put a seat down on inside of here on both sides, because it'll be big enough for 2 people to get into there. And that means I'll be able to fill it up to just under 200 gallons of water, because you'll have that much rise in there with 2 people. All right. Now keep the valve on here, but not a double valve, just a valve so I can screw on a garden hose to drain it down when I have to. And I'll drain that down and use it for irrigation. So I won't be wasting the water. And I'll have a place to sit down and relax in a jacuzzi. Now in the summertime, I'm probably not going to need a heater in that, but in the wintertime, I'll guarantee I'll need a heater. So I was thinking, one of the things that was planning on a future project is to do a wraparound porch on the front and this side of the cabin. So I have a place for my barbecue on this side of the cabin, blocked from the wind. And it is windy right now. I do have my wind resistant mic on. I hope it's working. But yeah, I'm going to do a wraparound porch. And I'm just going to make the porch a little bit larger so that I'll be able to set that jacuzzi on the front porch. So I'll have a nice place to sit out there. And when I'm talking about a porch, I'm not talking about putting a roof on that porch. I'm talking about just a deck. So I can sit down, and I'll probably cut out a hole in the deck where the jacuzzi will sit down a little bit lower so it's easier to get in and out. So that's a plan for I have down the line. And the reason we're over here at the chicken coop is because today, well, it was 105 today, so I did a little bit of work, and I'll show you what I did. Well, for one, the gate is open, and the chickens are intermingling in there. But I did put a nesting box. I built this nesting box and put it in there. If anybody wants me to give them the very simple instructions on how to build a nesting box like this, just put it in the comments, your question in the comments down there, say I would like to know the plans on how to do that. It's so simple. It probably took me 45 minutes to make that box. And those are 12 by 12 by 12 nesting boxes. Those are great for most hens. If you have a larger hen, like a New Jersey Giant, like old Blackie over here, He's not really a New Jersey giant, but he sure is getting big compared to the other hens. Well, now they can go out and they can share the feeds that are out there. And I put water in here and took my shovel and dug up the ground and softened it so they could dig in there and cool off. And then I have these little wading pools in here for them to cool off in, so forth and so on. So they're all intermingling now. A bunch of buff Orpingtons getting along finally. I had to chase Nellie a few times because she was being the same biatch that she usually is. And as soon as I opened the gate, she went in there and started pecking at the other ones. Well, I had to yell at her. And now the other ones are over here with her. So they're doing okay. And we're going to go into the other cabin because I'm getting a little bit long here now. I'm already at 16 minutes. And I don't like to bore you guys with all this stuff. But yeah, in here, what I did was I separated these boxes, and those center panels in there that are painted with different colors, those are different panels that I just added. So now, instead of 2 big nesting boxes here, I've got 4 smaller ones, or 4 adequate ones. And on this side, I got 4 more. So now there's 8 nesting boxes on this side. And a lot of the hens are spending their time in here, so sooner or later, the whole family will come up in there. Hi, Nellie, you gonna come up and visit? Come on up, girl. Yeah, I'm not mad at you anymore. You're being better. All right. All right, just wanted to show you that stuff in here. And I did clean out in here and give them fresh water and plenty of feed. So they're good to go for the night. All right. So with that being said, the last thing I want to talk about is there's a lot of chitter chatter going around about using the extra electricity created with your solar and off-grid systems and wind turbines for water heating. Okay, well, at one time, as you know by my old videos, I had the same misbelief that making water, hot water, was a very, very, very important thing. It's not that important. I have a little propane water heater made by Marey, M-A-R-E-Y, and I bought it through Home Depot. And that one does everything you need it to do. You turn a faucet on, it fires off with propane. You have hot water coming out the faucet almost instantly. You shut it off and the water stops. Okay, now you don't use a heck of a lot of hot water. And in the desert out here, just the water in a storage tank, those big black storage tanks, gets pretty hot during the summer. So there's a dial on that water heater. I can shut it down to the summer mode and it doesn't heat up the water as much. So the water's a little on the cooler side. You still have hot water for bathing and washing and things like that. You don't need that much hot water. All right, so if you do want to use hot water, you've seen my system where I was using these poly barrels and I put a 300 watt water heating element in the bottom of it to heat the water that was in those tanks as a preheater. Never used it. Okay? Don't need it. Now, if you want a good, efficient water heater, I'm going to go over this real quick and tell you exactly how to do it. This is poly tubing, okay, for drip irrigation. This is the 1/2 inch stuff. And you can buy it with these little fittings and make a hole in there and punch these in. And this is good for irrigation. When you buy this hose, the 1/2 inch hose, you can buy it at Home Depot. A 100-foot roll of this stuff goes anywhere from $8 to $12. Okay, so it's cheap. So if you want to make a really good water heater for off-grid, this is what you do. Get yourself a piece of plywood. Cut it 4 by 4. So it's 4 foot wide, 4 foot wide in a square. Get yourself a couple of 8-foot 2x4s. Cut those in half and fasten them onto the edges all the way around. Make a box. All right? Then you're going to take this stuff and you're going to start right in the center. You're going to make a hole through the board, and you want to spray paint this whole thing, even the 2x4s, with black paint. You want it all black inside. So you're going to start right in the center, and you're going to take the end of your poly tube and put an elbow in there, and they sell all kinds of fittings for these, and these are a lot like shock bite. They just push on to the end of it, and you can't pull them back off. They're stuck on there. Okay, so these are caps for the end, but the ends of these, if you take the cap off, actually have hose bib thread on them, or it's close to hose bib thread, so you can just put a garden hose on there if you wanted to. But you can buy different ones that actually have hose bib connections on them and so forth, and elbows, 90 degrees, T's, all that kind of stuff. They have all these fittings, and they're inexpensive. So you're going to start right in the middle, and you're going to take a 90-degree elbow, drill a hole through the center of the board, put the elbow on the end of that and stick that through, and then put a piece of poly on the other side of it so you have a place to put your connector on. And then you're going to start coiling this stuff around and around and around, and every now and then you'll take one of these. These are conduit clamps for 1/2-inch EMT. You'll find these in the electrical section of Home Depot. So every now and then, as you're going around in a circle, you'll take one of these and you'll push it down like that, and you put a short screw in there, a little 1/2-inch truss head screw to hold it down to keep it from jumping. And you put those like 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And then the next pipe will come and go right over the top of that. And then you put another clamp there and do the same thing. So you're going to keep going around till you get this whole thing. And when you get to the last section where you can't go to any further, you can't make another loop, you're going to drill a hole through at a corner area like this, put another 90 there, go through the board, and put another piece of the poly tube on there so that you can make a connection. Now you have 2 connections on the back. Now find yourself a piece of tempered glass that will cover this whole thing. If you don't have tempered glass, use a piece of plexiglass, okay? And then drill holes in it. Don't try to just shoot screws through the plexiglass, it'll crack. Drill holes in the plexiglass and put some screws around the outer edge and seal that down. And you have just made a solar water heating panel. Now you set that out in the sun and you run water through that system, and I'll guarantee that the water that comes out the other end of it, especially in the summertime, is going to be hot enough to burn your hands. So be careful with it. So I will probably make one of those up and have a valve that I can turn on and off to shut it, and I'm going to put a pump, a solar powered pump in line on that thing, so that I can connect it to my jacuzzi, my homemade jacuzzi, and circulate the water in the wintertime. And I can heat the water up all day long in the wintertime, and then climb into that thing on my deck and have a nice place to relax. That'd be just great. And then down the line, I just may, just to keep the bugs from bothering me if they become a big problem, I just may end up putting a little screen house around the jacuzzi, so it's screened in with a little private door, like a gazebo type thing around that, right in the center of the deck. So it's protected from critters and bugs and insects, so you can sit in there and enjoy it without having bugs bothering you. All right, everybody, gone on long enough. Those are just some of my future ideas that I'm thinking about doing. And hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Questions and comments at the bottom. This is G Bear signing off.